For decades, human resources ran on a simple procurement model. If a piece of software promised to make hiring or managing easier, you bought it and plugged it right in. That era of frictionless HR tech just hit a wall. Every piece of enterprise software now requires evaluation through its statutory risk classification, regardless of its promised efficiency or feature set. This is the official journal of the European Union, the vehicle for Regulation 2024-1689, the AI Act. It acts as an absolute regulatory filter for any technology entering the European workspace. If you are an HR executive, corporate counsel, or technical lead operating within the EU, or extending your operations into it, your procurement pipeline now answers to this text. The Act does not offer best practices or voluntary guidelines. It divides artificial intelligence into an uncompromising framework of rigid legal categories based entirely on how the technology is used on people. Treating an algorithmic deployment in HR as a routine IT upgrade constitutes a severe compliance failure. Every tool must be legally mapped before it is ever switched on. The highest tier of this regulatory framework is the absolute prohibition. These are practices deemed unacceptable under European law. Look at this standard timeline of the employee lifecycle. The Act brings a hard stop to one specific node: emotion recognition in the workplace. This covers any system attempting to infer a worker's emotional state or mood from microexpressions, facial analysis, or biometrics. The technology may exist, but running it on your staff is banned. The exact mechanism is Article 5, Paragraph 1, Point F. This is not future legislation waiting for a technical standard. This prohibition entered into force on February 2, 2025. You cannot bypass this restriction. No amount of employee consent forms, internal privacy policies, or detailed technical documentation can authorize an Article 5 prohibition. It is a strict legal void. For enterprise IT and legal teams, the immediate mandate is to audit the entire proposed and existing tech stack. You must verify that no vendor module is quietly running behavioral or emotional inference in the background. Pitching emotion recognition to an HR department now constitutes a direct legal liability. Under Article 5, these features expose the enterprise to significant fines, voiding any perceived technical advantage. Below the prohibitions, the Act addresses the core of daily human resources operations. Here, AI triggers the heaviest compliance burdens in the regulation, the high-risk tier. The statutory anchor for this tier is Annex 3, Point 4, which maps out employment and workforce management. We can divide this into two pillars. The first pillar covers the systems built to manage recruitment and selection. This starts before an application is even filed. Algorithmic systems used to place targeted job advertisements are immediately classified as high risk. Next comes the intake process. If you deploy a system to filter applications, sort CVs, or rank incoming candidates, that system carries the high-risk designation. Finally, the evaluation phase. Any AI used to score candidates during interviews or automated testing phases falls into this same category. The logic here is precise. Because these functions dictate who gets access to employment, the algorithmic decision maker is stripped of its status as simple administrative software. HR teams can no longer blind trust automated recruitment pipelines without their enterprise assuming the heavy, ongoing operational burden of a high-risk regulatory profile. Once a candidate is hired, the high-risk classification follows them into their daily operational life. The second pillar manages active employees, capturing systems that determine promotions or enforce dismissals. When an algorithmic system, rather than a human manager, drives these high-stakes career decisions, the legal scrutiny intensifies. The machine is heavily regulated because the human impact is severe. But the Act goes deeper than hiring and firing. Algorithmic systems that handle routine task allocation and shift assignments are also classified as high risk. And finally, any AI deployed to monitor and track employee performance, behavior, or productivity is caught in this exact same regulatory net. This statutory capture is expansive. It oversees everything from macro-level termination decisions down to the micro-level logistics of organizing a weekly schedule. Deploying efficiency tracking AI elevates a company's regulatory posture to the high-risk tier. This status mandates continuous human oversight, strict data governance, and automated logging. Understanding that a system is high risk is only the mapping phase. The next operational question is how you actually turn that software on. You cannot simply purchase an Annex 3 system and deploy it the next morning. There is a strict chronological step that must occur first. That step is the transparency requirement. Article 26, paragraph 7, establishes the duties of the deployer, in this case, the employer. Before putting a high-risk AI system into service in the workplace, the employer must inform the workers' representatives. The employer must also inform the specific workers who will be subject to the system's operation. The Act establishes this notification as a hard legal gate. The process must be fully completed before the system is activated. The Act ensures that algorithmic management can never be implemented silently. Organizational transparency is now a rigid operational prerequisite for any AI upgrade. These three distinct legal mechanisms lock together to form a single, impenetrable regulatory boundary around all human resources operations. The architecture has an absolute floor, zero tolerance for emotion recognition under Article 5. It has a strict operational ceiling, the automatic high-risk designation for candidate filtering and workforce management under Annex 3. Deployment remains stalled until the employer meets the mandatory prior notification requirements under Article 26. The EU AI Act necessitates a perfect alignment between HR, legal, and IT. Deploying HR software has evolved into a strategic, strictly regulated legal operation.